Zhang Ling closed the heavy wooden door of his apartment behind him, shutting out the relentless noise of the bustling city and the lingering echoes of the long filming day. The quiet of the room enveloped him like a comforting blanket, allowing the exhaustion in his bones to finally settle in. He tossed his jacket onto the nearby sofa, loosening the collar of his shirt with a deep, weary sigh as he walked toward the kitchen to pour himself a glass of water. The apartment felt unusually empty tonight, a stark contrast to the lively energy of the set where he had spent the last 14 hours surrounded by cast and crew. Yet, even amidst the chaos of production, his mind had frequently wandered back to a very specific face and a very specific smile that managed to anchor him no matter how chaotic things got. Without consciously planning his next move, his hand reached into his pocket and pulled out his smartphone, his thumb instinctively navigating to a contact that he dialed more often than anyone else on his private list. He watched the screen illuminate with her name, a subtle, involuntary smile curving the corners of his lips as the familiar, soft ringing tone began to play on the speaker. It was late, well past midnight, but he knew her habits well enough to know that she was likely still awake, either scrolling through scripts or unwinding from her own demanding schedule. The distance between their respective homes suddenly felt entirely irrelevant the moment the dial tone hummed in his ear, bridging the physical gap with the simple promise of her voice. On the other end of the line, the ringing stopped abruptly, replaced by the sound of shuffling papers and a soft, sleepy intake of breath that immediately made his chest tighten with an unexpected wave of fondness. Tian Xiwei blinked against the sudden glow of her phone screen, her voice laced with a charming blend of fatigue and genuine surprise as she answered. She had been halfway through marking notes on her upcoming script, her desk littered with highlighters and half-empty mugs of tea, but the sight of his caller ID had instantly wiped away the midnight fog clouding her mind. Sitting up straighter against her pillows, she pulled her oversized blanket tighter around her shoulders, settling in for a conversation that she knew would effortlessly derail her productivity for the rest of the evening. "Linghe," she murmured softly, her voice still holding that delicate, morning soft texture despite the late hour, instantly making him feel as though he were standing right there in the room with her. "Hey," he replied, his tone dropping into a warm, effortless cadence that he reserved exclusively for moments like this when the rest of the world faded away. "Did I catch you at a bad time? Are you still studying your lines, or did I successfully interrupt something important?" "You know you could never interrupt anything important," she countered instantly with a playful huff, a quiet giggle escaping her lips as she tossed her highlighter aside. "I was just drowning in dialogue, to be honest. My brain feels like it turned into scrambled eggs about 2 hours ago, so your timing is actually borderline miraculous." Hearing her laugh sent a wave of instant relief through him, washing away the remnants of the day's stress as he leaned his hip against the kitchen counter, gazing out the large glass window at the distant city lights. "Good, because I really needed to hear a human voice that wasn't shouting, 'Action,' or 'Cut,' for the 500th time today," he admitted, letting a hint of genuine vulnerability slip into his tone. "My brain is completely fried, Xiwei. I honestly don't even know how I drove home without missing my exit." "Well, I am very glad you made it back in one piece," she said, her voice softening into a deeply affectionate murmur that made his heart skip a beat against his ribs. "You always push yourself way too hard on set, Linghe. Did you actually eat dinner, or did you survive entirely on iced coffee and pure willpower again?" He winced slightly, knowing she would catch him in a lie if he tried to claim he had eaten a proper meal, so he opted for the sheepish truth instead. "Okay, so maybe I had a protein bar around 6 o'clock, but that technically counts as food, right?" "That counts as a sad excuse for a snack, not dinner," she scolded playfully, though there was an underlying warmth of care in her words that made him feel cherished in a way few others could manage. "Honestly, if you were here right now, I would force you to eat a proper bowl of noodles instead of letting you starve yourself. You have to take care of your health, you know. Who is going to look after you when I am not around to nag you?" "That is a very good question," he murmured, his gaze softening as he listened to the gentle sound of her breathing through the receiver. "Maybe I should just move into the apartment next door to yours so you can supervise my diet 24/7. Would that satisfy your inner manager?" "Oh, please, you would probably complain about my cooking within the first 24 hours and try to sneak out for midnight barbecue," she teased, a bright image of his playful pout flashing instantly in her mind. "Besides, my neighbors are already noisy enough without adding your tall self looming in the hallway complaining about script revisions." "I do not loom," he protested with a feigned tone of absolute offense, though a low chuckle rumbled in his chest betraying his amusement. I gracefully stand in hallways while contemplating the profound mysteries of the universe, thank you very much. Right, profound mysteries like whether you ordered spicy or mild wontons for your non-existent dinner, she shot back smoothly, her clever wit always keeping him thoroughly on his toes. The easy banter flowed between them like a second language, built on months of shared long hours, inside jokes, and a quiet, unspoken understanding that had slowly blossomed beneath the watchful eyes of the public. They talked about nothing and everything all at once, drifting effortlessly from complaints about the erratic weather on set to humorous anecdotes about their co-stars falling asleep standing up during wardrobe fittings. Every shared laugh felt like a tiny spark of warmth in the quiet night, a reminder of the rare and precious connection they had managed to carve out for themselves amidst the intense spotlight of the entertainment industry. As the minutes ticked by, the playful energy slowly shifted into something much softer and more intimate, the conversation dipping into lower registers and longer pauses that felt entirely comfortable rather than awkward. Zhang Ling ran a hand through his messy hair, closing his eyes as he listened to the faint rustle of her sheets on the other end, picturing her curled up in her bed with her hair spilling over the pillows. I missed you today, he confessed suddenly, the words slipping out before his cautious filter could catch them, carrying an earnest weight that hung softly in the quiet space between their phone lines. There was a brief moment of silence on the line, the kind of quiet that usually makes people panic, but between them, it felt like a collective breath being held in sweet realization. Tian Xiwei stopped playing with the edge of her blanket, her chest tightening as a genuine, breathless flush warmed her cheeks despite the cool night air in her room. She pulled the phone closer to her ear, her voice dropping to a tender whisper that bypassed all her usual defenses. I missed you too, Ling, she confessed back, the raw honesty of her admission echoing clearly in the stillness of her apartment. Hearing her say it aloud felt like a heavy anchor finally dropping into place, settling the restless flutter in his chest and making the grueling demands of his career feel entirely worthwhile. Only a few more weeks of this intense schedule, he reminded her, offering a reassuring note to both of them as much as to himself. And then we actually get a few days off to breathe. We should do something normal. Like actually go outside in daylight without wearing disguises or worrying about call sheets. That sounds like an absolute dream, she sighed happily, imagining a world where they could walk down a street together without drawing a crowd of camera-wielding fans. No cameras, no directors shouting instructions, just normal food and a normal walk. It's a deal, Ling. You better hold yourself to that promise. I always keep my promises to you, he replied firmly, his voice laced with a quiet sincerity that left no room for doubt. They lingered on the call for a little while longer, talking about trivial morning plans and exchanging quiet goodnights that neither of them seemed eager to finalize. Eventually, the heavy weight of exhaustion caught up with Tian Xiwei again, her responses growing softer and her sentences trailing off into peaceful, sleepy hums. Realizing she was half asleep on her end, Zhang Ling smiled gently, his heart swelling with a protective affection for the hard-working girl on the other side of the screen. Go to sleep, Xiwei, he instructed softly, his voice acting like a soothing lullaby across the digital distance. Let your brain finally turn off for the night. I'll talk to you when the sun comes up. Okay, she murmured, her voice thick with upcoming slumber. Drive safely tomorrow. Good night, Ling. Good night, Xiwei, he whispered back, waiting patiently until he heard the soft click of the line disconnecting before he finally lowered his own phone. He stood there in the quiet kitchen for a few moments longer, the heavy solitude of his apartment no longer feeling lonely or burdensome, but rather filled with the lingering echo of her voice. His phone sat quietly in his palm, the dark screen hiding a conversation that thousands of fans would have given anything to witness, but which belonged entirely and intimately